Colorado duo taking the helm today for Boss Man Joe on the Friday edition of the Patriot Radio News Hour. This 9th day of July 2021. Summer is upon us. Duh. Thanks for joining us. This is Brian joining Jason. Patriot Trader Group getting you the most gold and silver, adding heft to your portfolio for 25 years. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. Patriots website, you know it, allamericangold.com. Hope everyone's had a good week so far. Hopefully a short week for a lot of people, but weekend ahead of us. This is your co-host, Brian, joining Jason. Kind of last minute, Jason, but that's what we do sometimes, yeah?
Yeah, Joe's been sick since the weekend, kind of fighting it back and forth. Felt a little better Tuesday, Wednesday. Felt way worse yesterday and today. So he's gonna check out today and take the weekend off and see how he feels by Monday. And well, that's what we do. And Brian, it's interesting. This last year was such a blur. I'm talking, let's say May, June of 2020 to today. This last year, I didn't realize was such a blur, at least for me here at the radio station, 1360 KHC, because when Eric got sick, and before him, Joe got sick last year, and Eric hung on a little longer, did some shows with us, helped with the Patriot Trading News Hour for a little while longer, and Joe was in the hospital sooner. I forgot, Brian, and you see, let's see if you could jog your memory. Was I doing 2 shows a day for 3 to 4 weeks last year? Am I remembering that right? Because my mom was here. My mom does work here at the radio station. She was reminding me that I was doing 2 shows a day. She said my voice was giving out, trying to run the radio station, run the gold and silver business, and do 2 shows. Do you remember any of that?
At least 2 a day, but I was double timing in my own way. So that's a faint memory. I'm having a hard time remembering.
It's a blur, isn't it? Because you still had your old gig last year at that time, right?
Right.
And then we had Glenn Biddle that was still around. I think he came in and alleviated the afternoon show a little bit, and we just made it work as best we could. And we still had Wendy working over there, and she was trying to. Towards the end of Joe's illness, it was starting to get us some specials and sell some gold because gold was running at that point. Coronavirus was scaring everybody to death, and everybody was freaked out. Last June and July, it was a few months in, and we just kept plowing forward with all of those difficulties. So Joe being sick this week, it kind of gave me a little reminder of what we did last year.
Stirs those memories, yeah, that's for sure.
1 year. That's just 1 year. 1 year ago.
Blur is a good way to put it.
Yeah, blur. I do the one. We do the one show at 3:00 here, local Colorado time, the Colorado Front Range News Hour, and we run the radio station. Brian's been coming in more. He's been helping with the technical side of things, working a lot of extra hours just over the last week or two.
Sometimes it doesn't show, Jason. I'm spending more time, and it seems like things are going sideways more.
Can you imagine if
that's a sign?
Can you imagine, Brian, if we didn't have you fixing things that I have no ability to fix? I mean, I have ability. But I say no ability, meaning I've got all my other brush fires to put out. I can't put out yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and yesterday was definitely the hand of God for Jim, our engineer, to be there when I wasn't there, and something that I couldn't remotely touch went sideways. So, yeah, good Lord above is keeping his eye out on keeping different things going for us. So, and thanks for all you listeners, your prayers, and your prayers for Joe. Might as well kick those back in till Joe gets in the clear of whatever he's dealing with.
That's exactly right. So if you are a gold and silver listener, a gold and silver buyer, the phone number that you hear every day, multiple times a day, that is how we do business with you to start. You call the number 800-951-0592. That number again is 800-951-0592. We're working currently on getting a special on the air, so we'll produce that as soon as it's available if we get one. But other than that, well, we got a few things to talk about coming to the next segment. But it looks like Brian pulled up a couple stories on possible housing bubble number 2. Then something about millions of low-paying jobs becoming available and what that means. But I'd like to say, Brian, for those in Arizona that are listening, if you don't listen to the 3 o'clock show, we have some pretty decent shows that Brian and I do. Yesterday,
Fridays, huh?
Yeah, well, and yesterday was a bad day for me and Bryan. Like I said, getting a lot of other things done around the radio station. So we go to some go-to material. Sometimes we'll just run some pre-recorded materials from other guys that say the same thing as we say. And we had this guy, Peter Joseph. He did these Zeitgeist documentaries about 13, 14 years ago. And Bryan, I have to say that material is strong. We did Zeitgeist Addendum, which was the second documentary in 2008. And he just goes over the bare bones facts of the Federal Reserve System, fractional reserve lending, Money Mechanics, the book that was put out to talk to banks about how this system is run. And then we played a little bit of John Perkins, the economic hitman, about how this system infects the rest of the world, and how these guys are sinking their hands into every single kind of asset and country out there. And if you're not playing in the system, it's not so good for you, right?
No, that's right, Jason. And I really like what I hear a number of hosts talking about, and that is coming up with parallel systems from the bottom up, because things at the top are rotten. And the illusion that we're going to be able to change this from the top, well, if God decides that's how it's going to happen, fine. But with the way most people are seeing it, we got to set up parallel systems, and gold and silver is one of those key ways that financially you can get yourself out of the way when the boot comes stomping down, and we're the little ants scurrying around just trying to get from day to day.
It's interesting you said that too, Bryan. I just was talking to another new show host who just signed up to do a show 3 o'clock on Sunday, Victor. Victor was just saying the same thing in my office as I was signing him up for the show. He's going to start on the 18th on Sunday, 2 Sundays. He's like, yeah, the only way to really fix this thing is to get organized from the bottom up, and get this going from here. And I think it shows what's going on. We'll talk more about that stuff when we get back.
Patriot Radio News Hour on a Friday. Jack Daniels Friday, Jim Beam Friday, whatever your preference is. Maybe it's just Tahibo tea or some other healthy drink for Friday. We'll raise our glasses to you and appreciate today's Friday together. We just heard news over our pretty lame news service that our dictator governor said the emergency is over. Yay. Funny thing is, I can't tell any difference up here, and I'm hoping that you Arizonans are similar, that what emergency. But anyways, today is lockdown day number 480. There's a different counts depending on when people started counting. Mine was from the Monday, the 16th of March last year. So day number 480, all of a sudden, this concocted emergency is over, Jason, for Coloradoans.
Yeah, there's always going to be an emergency coming, right? There's 9/11. Let's blow up our own buildings and say it was some terrorists. Let's give these banks a way of regulating them, self-regulating, and let them loan a bunch of money out to people that shouldn't be getting mortgages that are going to fail. These mortgages where after a year goes by, suddenly the interest rates go up and the payment goes up, and it just eradicates these people that can barely pay the rent anyways. You get them to buy a house, and then you have the housing crisis, and millions and millions of people being kicked out of their homes because they didn't either have the ability or the financial means to buy a house. But hey, this is a great way to just pull all of that time and money in straight into one direction, Bryan, which is straight up. And if you've lived any length of time, if you're in your late 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and older, you've seen the standard of living in this country just drop. It's just it's not straight down. It's not like a market crash. It's stair stepping down, right, Bryan? And everything that's going on, these emergencies that keep happening, I believe we're going to start seeing these more frequently, maybe less severe, but more regular. And the emergency is over, Bryan. For how long? A couple of months, right?
Well, and looking at the headlines, looks like there's a reason to be concerned if you're back in New York City. Flooding today, jet skis down the streets, heavy rain continues from Tropical Storm Elsa. So, yeah, it never fails, these crisis theater when it's generated, and then we've got the natural events happening just to kind of keep everybody on our kick back on our heels well, keeps us guessing. But you longtime customers and listeners of the Patriot Radio News Hour, I think, know better.
Well, and you know, it's funny, Brian. So when back when 9/11 happened in 2001, and this may sound a little, I don't know, unsympathetic, I guess, but I mean, I'm here in Colorado, and back then I was delivering pizzas. That's what I did for a long time. I paid all my bills delivering pizzas. I actually bought my first house as a pizza driver. I was one of those guys they weren't supposed to give a loan to. And when 9/11 happened, you know, it was a big emergency. It was on every channel. Everybody was scared. Oh my God, they're gonna blow up things in Colorado? What are all the, you know, in this fear cycle that hit in? So it's a lot like coronavirus. Oh, hey, there's this pandemic. It's going to kill everyone. Oh, you know, 24-hour news, fear. The fear drum is being beaten. So that on the backside, because fear always brings in control. You beat the fear drum and you gain control.
You're right. That's right. Don't forget about the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act that, kind of like the Patriot Act, was sitting there just, you know, crafted just for the right nick of time to be presented for the states to be able to take that and base a tyranny or a slow creeping tyranny and give it a few steps forward.
And the Patriot Act was well geared for what's getting ready to happen here in this country. And when I say that's unsympathetic, when that happened, 9/11, and I was watching everybody freaking out around me, and I was just looking around. I was like, well, I don't know anybody in New York. How does this really bother me? They're already saying it was a bunch of guys in caves that planned it. I don't think they're going to be able to get away with it again, because at the time I actually believed the news stories that it was a bunch of terrorists that did the whole thing. And I was just sitting there saying, how does this affect me, Brian? I think if everybody would ask this question, how does this really affect me? Yeah, a lot of people died. It was a bad thing. But I'm in Colorado. I need to take care of me here in Colorado, right, Brian?
Well, and it doesn't help when we have you know, big names like, you know, before you know, an hour before Joe's show starts, we've got Brian Kilmeade, Fox News guy, and he's there just reinforcing the same story. And for all I know, he believes it. You know,
Yep.
As far as a trainees, right? Flight school trainees, just keeping it moving along. And again, he may believe it, or maybe that's part of his paycheck. Maybe he has an incentive to keep it going along.
Yeah, I mean, we do our 9/11 show every year. This year's, you know, we're coming up on it, the 20th anniversary, so there'll be a whole lot of extra bells and whistles around that. But it's interesting, Brian, that a lot of the first-hand witness testimonies right in New York when that happened, a lot of the video that was shot, they don't really, you don't really see that stuff anymore, do you?
Nope. The Pentagon, you know, all the video cameras, the high surveillance around the Pentagon, never mind that wing, you know, just all the supposed coincidences we're not supposed to think have anything to do with the other, right? The $2.3 trillion that Rumsfeld stood at the podium a couple days before.
No, the day before he had a speech the day before, and I thought it was $4 trillion, but yeah, Brian, you reminded me of this. I think it was the day before he had a speech about how they were missing those trillions of dollars, and then 9/11 was the next day. Multiple trillions.
Well, not only that, but that particular wing of the Pentagon is where they were supposedly researching it, trying to figure out where it went.
And also the Pentagon's record-keeping department in New York City, that was in Building 7, the third building that nobody talks about. That building went down. It didn't get hit by a plane. But that had a lot to do with the Pentagon records keeping was in that building.
But we're not supposed to connect the dots. We're just supposed to kind of wander around like lemmings, right? That's what they would have us do. The politics, the politicians, and the mainstream media. Again, I think we're probably saying things that the majority of you listeners already know and already get. And sorry for dragging up bad.
Has to be brought up. Has to be brought up regularly.
In the case of 2,800 people perishing on that day, the fine first responders. I think so too. I think it just does them a disservice to kind of brush it aside.
Yeah, I think if their families were listening, Brian, if their families were listening, I'm sure they have no problem with us bringing it up regularly.
Yeah. Well, and then adding to that, that talking about the death toll, never mind, wherever you stand on the issue of abortion, 2,000 to 3,000 babies every day in the United States. We're talking at that same death count in New York City on 9/11. every day on average in this country. So I don't know, getting on a soapbox now.
No, that's fine. And what we were talking about coming in, Brian, was emergencies. You brought it in. Jared Polis says here in Colorado, the emergency is over. And I just said simply, well, till when? There's going to be another one. If you're listening new or don't understand what we're getting at is they have to have these emergencies so that the banking system that's in place doesn't have fingers pointed at them. Markets are going to crash and go up and then crash and go up, boom and bust cycles, because this is the control they have over us. So to continue that control, they have to have fear in the news cycle. This is why they own the 5 big media companies that tell you everything that is false and completely bogus, so that you just follow their storyline and just shut up, put a mask on, get a vaccination, go home. And there'll be another one, Brian. There'll be another emergency coming, because we're going to read this was the article you brought up. The expansion of the housing bubble, too, is clearly visible on these 2 charts. I may have you start reading into this, but last year, and not last year, 2 years ago, we had talked about this, I think, earlier in the week. We were, Brian and I and Joe, Brian and I bought into this company because we knew that the next emergency was coming. I knew it. I didn't know coronavirus was going to be their emergency they concocted, but I knew that there was going to be another emergency coming, and there was going to be a crash in the markets, and that was going to be good for gold and silver. So I as soon as Joe came on the air and said he wanted to partner in Colorado, I just signed up. I just gave him everything I got. I wanted to buy into this opportunity, and sure enough, that emergency transpired. I'm saying right now we're kind of in the same spot as 2019 when we had information about the repo markets. China and Japan started selling treasuries in December, and boom, coronavirus was all over China, and then January, February was all over America, and then we had our shutdown here in Colorado on March 13th is when Trump signed the paperwork saying that it's an official emergency for the entire nation, and then the governors of these states just started opening their checkbooks and getting a whole bunch of stuff paid for.
Free money.
Backside money that you don't really hear about. Oh, it's here to help coronavirus. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, California just admitted they're going to take a bunch of that emergency money and pay for these delinquent rents and mortgages they haven't been paying for 12 months and 14 months, 16 months, Brian. That's what it's all economics. It really is. And when you buy an ounce of gold from Patriot Trading Group, what you're essentially doing, that's no small little thing you're doing. You're taking the bigness of this world and all these emergencies out there, and you're saying, you know what? I need to take care of my little corner of the world. I can use myself as buying gold as an example to other people that don't understand buying gold and silver. And when things move further into the future, the people that don't buy gold are freaked out and fearful, and you're sitting there feeling very calm and more responsive to what's going on around you. You're not going to have that fear as much when you take care of your financial house, Brian.
That's right. I mean, gold and silver, it's biblical, it's ancient, thousands of years. I forget, somebody said the other day, unlike what governments can create out of nothing with currency, only God can create gold and silver. I think that's a very appropriate thing to remember.
Start into this housing bubble too. I mean, we know that there's going to be some turbulence in the housing markets. It looks, and I think after Brian reads some of this, I'll give you my point of view, what I think is going to happen. But the St. Louis Federal Reserve, Brian, do you have it up?
Yeah, you're talking about the housing bubble?
Yeah, read the first few paragraphs of that, because I think this speaks very much as to what's really going on.
Yeah, and this is coming off of investmentwatchblog.com, July 8th article. All debt-fueled speculative bubbles pop, even as cheerleaders claim otherwise. The expansion of housing bubble number 2 is clearly visible in these 2 charts of house valuations, courtesy of the St. Louis Federal Reserve database, known as FRED. This first is the Case-Shiller Index, which, as you recall, tracks the price of homes on an apples-to-apples basis. In other words, it tracks price movements for the same house over time. Now that this is an index chart, where the index is set at 100 as of January 2000. It's not a chart of median housing prices. The second chart's also a housing price index chart, courtesy of the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency. The red line marks where the house prices would be if they had tracked the consumer price index. In other words, inflation is measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You'll notice that the last time the Case-Shiller Index touched this baseline was 1998, almost a quarter century ago. On the FHFA index, it hasn't touched it since the mid-'70s, 45 years ago.
And I'm looking at that chart.
Well,
I'm looking at that chart.
Yeah, you listeners may not notice, not unless you open the article, but if you were looking at the article and the charts, housing would have to drop by 40% to touch the baseline. Yes, this is officially impossible because the Fed has our back in every bubble, and housing never goes down because the demand is forever rising.
Let me, Brian. Let me cut in. Let me let the radio listeners know what we're looking at. So there's this chart of the index showing housing, and there's a red line showing how it generally goes up with the inflation, basically. It's kind of not a 45-degree line, but a little less than that. It just treads upwards. And what it's showing is the blue line of what's actually happening. And it goes a little above the red line, a little below it, bouncing around. And then right around 2007, it goes skyrocketing way above the red line and then crashes all the way back down. Well, guess where that little blue line is? It's way, way doubly higher above that red line right now. What's going to happen on the crash?
Second half of the Patriot Radio News Hour on a Friday. Thanks for being here with us. National Sugar Cookie Day. Don't ask me who makes these up. Jason, I think sometimes rightly so, questions what in the world, which lobby, and boy, the sugar lobby seems to have their fingers in many of these supposed national days.
Yeah, there's always somebody paying a little bit of money for that advertising little bit, right?
There's also Nunavut Day, which is supposedly a federal thing, but I don't know if that's maybe a Canadian or Alaskan native holiday, but I don't know. Don't ask me.
I've never heard of it, so somebody out there, I'm sure.
How about this one? Yeah, how about this headline, listeners? Nancy Pelosi's husband Paul made nearly $6 million on Alphabet stock and placed bets to make more cash on Amazon and Apple as the House moves to break companies up. And Jason, you've talked before about was it Standard Oil and the supposed monopoly protections put in place or that were enacted. He had his clever ways around it. I don't know if that's a lawyer thing or how he managed to do that, but the breaking up of Standard Oil did not break up the wealth of that family.
Yep. There's people outside taking pictures of the radio station.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
hopefully fans.
You guys in Arizona, we're in an old building. There's nothing really remarkable about this building. There's no reason. There is no reason right? to take photographs of this station unless there's. We're all conspiracy guys here. We question why anybody would take pictures of this station, but I couldn't get up and just go look at the guy. He just snapped a few photos and then just took off running down the street.
Yikes. Oh, boy. Unless he took a picture of an asteroid headed towards the building. Hopefully that's not what he was taking a picture of.
I mean, he was on the other side of the street, and then there's a couple of guys with clipboards just standing around on the corner.
What?
Yeah, man, the bizarre stuff. Great. So if you don't know 1360 Agency, there's a long history of I wouldn't call it anti-government, but strong opposition to government and the decisions they make. And the bigger and more successful this radio station gets, I think the more opposition, right, Brian?
Yeah, and it's calling out the monkey business. Calling out the monkey business and the crooks that would rather keep their face hidden and their antics shielded from the general public. Exactly.
There's this line chart that we were doing, because I wanted to finish just a little bit more on this, Brian. What do you think of this line chart? Look at that, because one is the control and the other one's the data. And you look at the data, it's 2007, and look at what happened, right? And now look where look at that blue line is, Brian. It's I would say 2 to 2.5 times higher off that red line than it was in 2007.
Yeah, and that chart, it's bounded on the x-axis, the left and right side, 1987 on the left side, and then up to we're at now, 2021. Or actually, it's not fully into 2021. It's just a little past 2020. But yeah, the housing bubble number one, tracking pretty closely to that red line, the CPI, up until 2000, 2000 or 1999.
Yep.
Shoots up, comes back down, 2007, that housing bubble, comes back down close, almost touches the CPI control line in red, and then, man, it just takes off and skyrockets.
Correct. That's about 2012, I'm looking, Jerry. It looked like that when it comes all the way back down, it's about 2012, it looks like, maybe 2013. Yeah. But, Brian, what I wanted you to notice is because obviously 2007 it comes way off that red line. It's way, obviously we had the massive crash, and then then it came down with all the quantitative easing. But look, if you look at where the red line is to 2007, and then the red line to the left side of where it's at now, you see that yellow band right there. Look at just that 2020, that last year. Look at where that line goes just in the last year. Look at how it just. I mean, it's almost the same as 2007. Now it's like it's not even close to 2007. Just that last year, 2020, right?
Dang.
You see that line? It goes. It's almost vertical. Look at it, straight up.
It is.
And we've talked about the M1 money supply. If you haven't heard this, the M1 money supply before 2007 was below 2,000 billions of dollars, the actual money that's actually in circulation. And then by the 2007, 2008 housing debacle, it crossed over that 2,000 billions of dollars in supply because of quantitative easing, and started moving towards the 3,000 billions in circulation. Bad news is, the bad news is, Brian, as it was heading towards 2020, it was getting kind of close to the 4,000 billions since 2007, but not quite there. In 2020 to today, just 1 year, year and a half, it's at 18,000 billions of dollars in circulation. 4.5 to 5 times more money in 1 year, Brian. And that's what this chart is showing us right here. Look at that line go straight up. It's showing us the same thing.
Where's our Toy Story sound effect from Buzz Lightyear? To infinity and beyond. That's what it looks like.
That's the money. Headed. That's the money printing. I think that's their motto, isn't it? Money printing to infinity and beyond.
Yeah, unfortunately, especially for people that have it big in the stock market, or if you're sitting on a bunch of cash, that's not a good place to be. If you got an uneasy feeling, there's a reason for you having an uneasy feeling about it.
Right, and that's why when Brian brought this article up, I wanted to get into it because, I mean, just look at you look at this chart, you look at the M1 money supply, and we were reading this article. It says nice, but when you turn an asset class into a casino of speculators and financiers playing with Fed-spewed free money, you're not dealing with shelter. You're dealing with gambling chips. You'll notice the Federal Reserve's massive manipulation, intervention in response to the Asian contagion of 97-98 began inflating an unprecedented bubble in the housing that rose to spectacular heights on the back of Fed policies. You may recall that $300 billion of designed to default subprime mortgage pools almost took down America's entire financial system. And with that teetering, the entire global financial system, $100 trillion at a time. Now, Brian, you brought up another article, One Tax, One World, One Tyranny, which is suggesting that 130 out of 139 countries in this little globalist cabal that they put together agree that there should be a minimum of 15% corporate tax across the entire world. They're going to suck the assets and the value and the money and your time out of your pockets on a worldwide scale, Brian, faster than we think. I think by 2030, there's going to be I think we're already in checkmate, Brian. But I'd rather be, like I said, we're all ants and the boot's coming down. I'd rather be the ant that's looking up at the boot and get out of the way at least. That's what gold and silver does for me. And 15% corporate tax. The corporate tax should be zero. Anytime you hear corporate tax, all you have to do is think, how much more are you going to pay? Because they're going to pass all that. They're going to pass all that money on to that cost onto us. Okay, all that money is going to go onto us. We're going to have to pay all that. Corporate tax should be zero. There should be a consumption tax, and then there should be tariffs. Go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
And that's the doublespeak by the politicians. They try to push one over on us, saying, "Oh, we're going to tax the corporations and the rich people." Well, yeah, maybe so, but the fallacy is that that's what's going to stop.
Coming up on a break, everybody. Stay tuned. This is the Patriot Trading News Hour with guest hosts Brian and Jason. We'll be right back.
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Your fill-in host, Jason and Bryan, today, and just got word of today's special, a 4-coin $20 Liberty set with the years 1877, 78, 79, and 1881 for $21.35 a piece times 4, coming to $8,540 for that 4-coin set. Again, 1877, 89, in 1881 in $20 Liberties for $85.40. Call 800-951-0592 and put your name on that one, right, Jason?
Yeah, let me talk about that for a second. These are essentially the same prices we'd be selling any other $20 Liberty. Lots of guys that I sell these coins to, it's gold, but it is a minted coin, a U.S. coin. So it's always good when you're stacking your gold coins or your silver coins. It's kind of cool to get different dates and mint marks. So here's a chance to get 4 ounces of gold. How many times have we said, Brian, recently that get 1 ounce of gold for every year you're alive and 1 ounce of gold for every year you've been married? It's sort of a good savings. That's a good place to be at for your savings.
Your target.
And this can put you 4 ounces closer, just this one thing. And you get 4 different years. Let me see if I get the years right. 1877, 1878, 1879, and 1881. Is that right, Brian?
Correct. The missing year is 1880.
Missing year is 1880, which, there are some dates and mint marks that are a little harder to get, that being partially one of those. But here it is. You can get 4 different dates. You're going to get 4 ounces of gold anyways. Why not cash in on something like this? What did you say, Brian? 8,540? Is that right?
Correct. 85.40 for the 4.
Call the number 800-951-0592. That number again is 800-951-0592. Patriot Trading Group has been doing it for a couple of decades, a little longer than a couple of decades. The radio shows have been on here in Colorado, I think. Is it 20 years? Over 20 years, Brian? The Patriot Trading Group's been here, right?
I think you're right. I think about that. Yeah.
Yep. So, it's always good to deal with a local company. I always try to. I guess for me, I just rather deal with a person, than dealing with. I guess what is it, Brian? You call someone on the phone nowadays, and there's a robot answering with pre-scripted responses. And then when something goes wrong or something is not,
that's just it.
Yeah, customer service is a thing of the past. But here at the Patriot Trading Group, and we get people that that we get situations that are not the best. Something takes longer to ship, or an item wasn't exactly the right one, or so there are just like any business, there are problems that we have. And a customer doesn't get completely what they want, or they're not completely satisfied. Well, with us, you just call and you actually can talk to the people that run the company. The office ladies there in Arizona will handle it just fine. If Joe or myself has to get involved, we'll talk to you, and we always make sure that to fix the situation and make it good for the customer. And it's a lost art. Brian's kind of like what is this? People they buy Ming Dynasty vases and furniture or whatnot. You know what I mean? It's like they don't make it that way anymore, do they? With the businesses that are personally handling it, it's just not that way anymore, is it?
Well, I would say from everything horrible coming out of political correctness, we still adhere to the original definition of what customer service is, as opposed to what the word service has been turned into, like so many other words. And I like to, coming from the agricultural community, I prefer to think of what most places have turned service. The federal government, I guess, set a good model for them, like the IRS or the Postal Service. All these service providing companies seem to have transitioned to the word service as what you do when it comes to cattle breeding. And I'm gonna stop right there, because that's it seems like what things have been turned into. But Patriot, for 25 years, has adhered to the old original definition of what customer service is really all about. That's right.
And you brought up the IRS there for a moment. We were going into the break. We were talking a little bit about we got this. They got this whole global system we need to put in place, and everyone needs to agree to a 15% minimum corporate tax. And you brought this story up, Brian, and man, how people just absorb this and just accept it as reality. Hey, those corporations, we need to tax those guys. I'll say it right now, we're a small business, and all expenses are considered when it comes to pricing our products. When you buy that ounce of gold, there's a premium. Well, because when we buy it from someone, that business has premiums, or that independent person, they have their business expenses. Everybody has their business expenses. When they go to sell a product, they can't buy it for $100 and sell it to you for $95. It doesn't work that way. Now I know the government and some of these big companies, they actually, Facebook and some of these big tech companies that don't turn a profit but they continue to work on and on. We're at a $100 million loss this year, but their stock's gone up. That's the fakeness of this system. That's because subsidies, taxpayer money is fixing that. But that aside, the average business, Brian, we have expenses. You build that into the price, and then you sell it for a price. That makes it so that Brian can feed his family, Joe can feed his family, and then Jason can feed his family. That's just the way it works. When you add a 15% corporate tax, like it's being suggested, corporate taxes should be zero. There should be no corporate tax. All they're basically saying is, you, the person purchasing whatever it is, you are going to pay 15% more. Mm-hmm. It's a hidden tax on the consumer, the person who actually consumes the item and actually uses it. There should be no corporate tax, and then let the corporations price that item accordingly, and then locales, the states, the cities, let them put a consumption tax on it, because then I can decide, well, I don't really want to live here in California anymore. There's a 25% consumption tax here. So these corporate taxes, they just kind of hide how bad these liberal states are really, really giving it to their citizens. That's why people move to Wyoming, Brian, is to escape all that extra percent. That percent, 15%, it's a lot more severe than it sounds, Brian.
Oh, it sure is. And if, again, expecting the politicians to tell us the full story, well, they also got bridges to sell us, right? But you're right, passing it on down the line to the food chain, to us, the consumer. But the politicians won't tell you that, will they?
One more segment on a Friday, Jack Daniels Friday. Hey, tune into 1360khnc.com. We got Fake News Friday coming later this day if you enjoy something a little more fun. We'll be right back.
Final segment, Patriot Radio News Hour on a Friday. Co-host Jason and Bryan here, filling in for Boss Man Joe. Thanks for sticking with us. Again, today's special, that 4-coin US $20 Liberty gold coin set containing years 1877, 8 to 9, and 1881 for $8,540. That comes to $21.35 for each of those four in that set. Call us toll-free, 800-951-0592, and get yourself that much closer to your goal, your target of holding real money.
And by the way, if you're one of those guys out there that you don't have $8,500 just laying around, that's not what our company does. We have the metals program, which you can be billed as little as $100 a month as a minimum to get into the metals program. Every quarter, we give you your $300 worth of metals. That aside, if you don't do the metals program, you want a couple ounces of silver, just call the number 800-951-0592. Set up an appointment. Buy a roll of silver dimes. I think $120, something like that. That price range is where we're at on the website, allamericangold.com. You can go there and check the prices out. Don't think that you need to buy a $2,000 gold coin to get started into something like this. A little bit at a time, just a little bit at a time. We have a couple of prepping type shows that come on, and I'm looking at Glenn Tate a little bit because we have this system that shows some of our hosts, and he's got prepping 2.0 on the weekend, and he'll tell you just as much as anybody else, hey, if you got $10,000, you want to start prepping, you get those supplies and put them together. But if you only got a few $100s, you can start with a few $100s, right, Brian? And you slowly build. You build what you need for the future. And financial prepping, that's gold and silver. That's just that's your savings. Gold and silver. We'll do the $100 silver guy, or we'll do the $8,500 gold guy today. You got to call 800-951-0592. Don't always think that you have to have thousands and thousands of dollars to buy into what we do here, Brian. We've got smaller means for people that have smaller abilities.
Yeah, that's right. Not everybody's a high roller. I'm definitely not a high roller. Everybody's at different stages of getting this figured out. And even if you're looking for something particular, definitely call us. You got questions about the metals plan? Happy to take your phone calls. Please do call us 800-951-0592.
And we had touched earlier in the show about some of these guys that have been buying shows on the weekends, Brian. I have like a spot or maybe two spots available to do live local from basically our 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. schedules, where we have Rick Rodriguez, our board operator, the Open Forum Thursday guy. He comes in and he helps pay for his show. He has a 3-hour now. Starting Sunday, he has a 3-hour ministry from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's how he gets his hours paid for. He comes in, does a little side work for us. And those spots for live local to have a board operator, have call-ins, those spots are essentially sold out. Once we get those last 2 spots sold out, then it's supply and demand. Then we start a waiting list. We want you to keep calling in, trying to do shows here on the radio station, but the prices will go up once the spots are filled. We have some spots in the nighttime and the early morning if you want to do a pre-recorded show where you send us the show and then we put it on the air. Those are still some spots that are available, but listen to these weekend shows. Glenn Tate, like I said, he's on Saturday. He's our open forum on Friday. He's coming up next. If you want to go to 1360khnc.com, if you're in Arizona, that's 1360khnc.com. Stream him in. Listen to the open forum, right, Brian?
That's right. And if you've been hearing some of our streaming issues, we think we've got a solid handle on it.